up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for tuning in, as always. Quickly, before we start today's show, I believe there are 15 tickets left for the late show tomorrow night, which will end up selling out during the day tomorrow. If you want to come see me and Robbie the Fire and Chris Vega do some stand-up comedy out in Poughkeepsie, New York tomorrow night, move right away to grab some tickets to that late show. These are my last two stand-up shows of the year. And I always have a good time up there at Laugh It Up in Poughkeepsie. ComicDaveSmith.com is where you can go for those tickets. And joining me today, as always, is the beautiful lady who I will be up there with. How are you today, Rob?
I'm doing excellent, and I got a couple more dates this year, starting with, you can go to my website, robbernsteincomedy.com. Check the links, though. The dates might not be accurate because I'm a retarded person, but they're all there. Sam Tripoli, end of the year in Jersey. And then I got 3 dates out in Colorado. One is in Denver, which is a Sunday day drinker, or you can come catch me up at Steamboat and come ski with me.
Ooh, where are you in Tripoli doing in Jersey?
The dojo spot.
Oh, yeah. What dates are you guys doing that?
New Year's, so I guess.
Oh, you're doing it New
December
Year's.
31st
Oh, okay.
Or
I was
something
gonna
like
say
that.
maybe I'll pop by and do a show, but I'm not doing New Year's. I'm taking New Year's off for the first time in years. But that's awesome, dude. Tripoli's the man. Love that guy. So much fun having him on the Part of the Problem pay-per-view event, which, by the way, we will at some point put up at partoftheproblem.com. Not sure exactly on the timing of that, but if you're a subscriber to partoftheproblem.com and you're like, really, I already subscribe, I got to pay more money for this pay-per-view, you don't have to. We will get it up there at some point, but you get a little bit early access if you go pay the pay-per-view. So sorry,
I was on it and I paid for it.
Rob pays me for every episode that he's on. Rob has to subscribe again.
If you want to watch it back, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, there you go. And then I charge you per view. If you want to, you're like, I just want to go back and see. Did I say this there? I go, well, it'll cost you. All right. So, the stuff I've been thinking about today, I guess, look, there's going to be some that's on the same theme here, which is Jeffrey Epstein, because this is such an interesting moment. Trump has now flip-flopped 5 different times on this issue and bungled it. And now we just got this bill that's been signed into law to release some of the files. We'll see what ends up coming out of any of this. But I guess there's just, as I mentioned the other day, there is something about this that is one of the things that's really kind of fascinating is that objectively speaking, Donald Trump's popularity has really taken a hit over the last year, and his administration. I mean, it's like the biggest political conversation right now is about a MAGA civil war, about this internal division. You have a situation where, Rob, like in 2016, for example, there were some divisions in the Democratic Party. They, I don't know, Bernie Sanders was running an insurgent campaign, if you will, and it had a lot of energy. It was breaking fundraising records. He was drawing huge crowds, had a lot of enthusiasm amongst the youth, but he would never personally attack Hillary Clinton. In fact, we used to make fun of him, if you remember, Rob, that Bernie Sanders was such a coward that he would say in the debates, I'm the only one on stage who hasn't taken money from the big banks in a one-on-one debate with Hillary Clinton. It's like, he still wouldn't say you're corrupt. He would go, I'm the only one. Like, he started doing this when there were several people on stage, and then he'd keep doing it when it was down to just the two of them. It was very bizarre. But anyway, it was, there was like kind of, at the time, there was some feeling that there's a civil war within the Democratic Party, but it was never quite anything like what we're witnessing right now on the right wing. I mean, for example, there were leftist commentators who disagreed with liberal commentators, but I think Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson more than just disagree. I think Ben Shapiro and Nick Fuentes they don't just go, well, we have a slight difference of opinion on a few issues, but we're part of the same big tent. Like, there's a civil war going on. Trump is bleeding. This is a major political problem for the Trump administration. And what's it all over? People say that they'll say that I'm obsessed with Israel, or all I ever want to talk about is Israel, or something like that. Believe me, much like, think about lockdowns, Rob. Think about how obsessed I was with lockdowns. They come up every now and then because it was a major thing that happened there. But like, I don't know. I'm happy to not talk about this shit anymore. But right now, this is the thing to talk about. The thing that really lost Donald Trump so much support from his own base. There were two things, right? We said it the other day. It was launching a war in Iran, and it was covering up the Jeffrey Epstein story. Okay, Donald Trump carried the youth a year ago. Now he's bleeding. He's down like 50 points amongst the youth. Well, what is that about? What is it that the youth don't like about Donald Trump? Well, they sure don't like that he's been facilitating this genocide for the last 2 years, but since he's been in it, he's continued the Biden policy. And I was thinking it again with this Pollard scandal. It's like, it's just hard to not go like, dude, these all come down to the same issue. It's like such a thorn in the side. And it's just interesting to see how much this administration will just tarnish its own legacy over refusing to hold on to that thing. It's did I use this analogy? I used this once before, Rob. I don't know if it was about this, but you remember the episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson gets his arm stuck in the vending machine, and then hours and hours later, someone goes, "Sir, are you still holding on to the snack?" And then he goes, "But why are you asking?" It turns out he lets go and can get out of it. It's like Donald Trump is losing everything, but he will not let go to this. I will support Israel no matter what position. And it's wild to see. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is the Wellness Company, and their latest product, which is the Pain Reliever Cream. You know that stubborn ache that never quite goes away, the one that ice, heat, and pain pills barely touch? What if you could target it at the cellular level instead of just numbing it? Well, that's exactly what TheraBlue was designed to do. TheraBlue is a next-generation pain-relieving peptide gel that works deeper than the skin's surface. Powered by aqua molecular delivery technology, it delivers peptides and botanicals for legit lasting relief. All you do is apply a thin layer, massage it until it's absorbed, and let your body experience lasting recovery. And right now, you can get 10% off by visiting twc.health/problem and using the promo code PROBLEM. The website is twc.health/problem, and the promo code is PROBLEM for 10% off. Move freely again with TheraBlue. All right, let's get back into the show.
Well, yeah, and the fact that Israel and Epstein are apparently both tied together does not help.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked yesterday, we did a members only episode, and I wasn't planning on talking about it, but someone asked the question about Jonathan Pollard. And I had not seen then, I saw since then that there's an interview of him, and then I guess there's some reporting that has corroborated this, that it's not just that Mike Huckabee had him to the White House. It's that evidently Mike Huckabee met with him several times in Israel and has been lobbying for him for years. Pollard says he's like a hero to him. He's a good personal friend, and he made sure to check in on his wife and like take care of her while he was dealing with his parole situation or whatever exactly the thing was. And it's just like, dude, for people who don't know, because even yesterday when we were talking about it, it's like I knew Pollard. I had read about him a while back. I knew the deal. Like I knew he was an Israeli spy who got busted and convicted for it. But I couldn't remember. I think me and you were both we were like, wait, was that the time Israel sold the secrets to the Chinese? Or was that the time they sold it to the Soviet? But no, it was the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Like, just to think about this for a second. So here's the story, right? You got this guy Pollard. He's spying on behalf of the Israelis, bringing back like military secrets for them. He gets caught. He gets sentenced to life in prison. He does 30 years and gets out. Now, Israel takes the information and they traded it to the Soviet Union in exchange for them allowing a bunch of Jewish Russians, or it might not have just been Russians, it might have been like Soviet, satellite countries, but like to allow emigration of a bunch of Jews to go to Israel. So like, again, really take a step back and think about that. The Cold War lasted from 1945 to 1991. In this war, in this Cold War, which by the way, it's called the Cold War, but like there's several hot wars in there, like the war in Korea, the war in Vietnam. These are all part of the Cold War. Now think about what America did during the Cold War. We spent trillions of dollars on wars, trillions of dollars on military, like crazy military Pentagon budgets, defense, whatever you want to call it, budgets. We fought proxy conflicts all over the world. We had our CIA topple democratically elected governments. We had our CIA topple non-democratically elected governments. We funded the Contras in Nicaragua and shipped cocaine into the United States of America. This was all done, under the banner of fighting communism. Okay, like there's as William F. Buckley himself said, right? In order to fight the Soviet menace, we have to erect, and I quote, a totalitarian bureaucracy within our shores. It was the justification for the military-industrial complex's existence. Essentially, we gave up on the American experiment because we said the Soviet Union was such a big, bad threat. And then you get a spy gets caught handing off top secret, not like it wasn't like information that was like, whatever. This was something you had to be an FBI agent to have, like top secret information. A spy gets caught handing that information over to the Israelis, who then give it to the Soviet Union, your enemy. That was the reason that we sacrificed so much. And you're telling me this guy was not only was he not the result of that wasn't that this guy gets publicly executed and then Israel is cut off forever and never considered an ally again. Oh no, none of that. In fact, they still get unconditional support. They get more foreign aid than any other country has since that time. They get more diplomatic cover and military protection than any other country has since that time. And the spy can go to the White House. Like, as I said yesterday, you just think about that. Like, people could try to paint it out like, oh, you got to be some type of Nazi to have a problem with that. You got to be some type of Jew hater to have a problem with that. No, any self-respecting man would find that to be an intolerable disgrace to his nation. What can you even say about that? Please, someone explain to me what the other side of that argument is, by the way. Like, who even has an argument on the other side? And I don't know. It's just one more example of this whole thing collapsing.
Well, don't pause and look to me to defend this.
Rob,
I don't have
the affirmative.
Yeah, I don't have the other side of that story.
Yeah, it is something though, right? Like, I don't know. There's just a certain point. I guess what it all comes down to, Rob, is that just like in a decentralized media environment, that type of shit just can't stand. It's just too juicy of a story. It's too easy for someone like me to explain. And it's too, it just leaves everybody else with like, well, there's no counter argument to that. It's just obviously correct that at the very least, that should have been enough for us to say, you don't get our foreign aid anymore, Israel. And by the way, one more little thing that I'll throw in there, the support for Israel up until 1991, like say between when America really started unconditionally supporting Israel, was say like between 1967 and 1991. What was the justification for supporting Israel, Rob? It was to roll back the Soviet Union. That was the whole thing. In fact, and this is what Benjamin Netanyahu used to always say, by the way, you know how Benjamin Netanyahu said, like, I guarantee Iran is 5 years away from a weapon like 35 times. And you know how he said, I guarantee that if you overthrow Saddam Hussein, like positive reverberations will sweep the region. Well, he also said back in the day, before he was going by Benjamin Netanyahu, I forget his original name. Back then he said, if the Soviet Union ceased to exist, Islamic terrorism would be wiped off the face of the planet. Like, that was his talking point back then. So basically, because he was just always saying whatever he thought Americans wanted to hear to keep sending them money. And so that was their, so they were using the excuse that Israel was a hedge against the Soviet Union as Israel was delivering top secret American information to the Soviet Union. What a story.
What was the sell of that the Soviets were backing Islamic terrorists?
Yeah, well, they backed a bunch of the Arab states. You know, it was all like global competition. So like the Soviets.
And that's while we were partnered with the Taliban to take out the Russians in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Kind of gets confusing.
No. So the Mujahideen was fighting against the Saudi-backed commie Afghan faction. So yes, we were fighting over communism, right? Like, so that was the whole thing. Oh yeah. Oh, there was one. You want to get into one more little cost of the Cold War? We've trained and armed Osama bin Laden on how to lure superpowers into unwinnable conflicts in third world countries. I don't know if that did that come up again, Rob? Like that was another little cost that we had of the whole the whole Cold War there. But yeah, and then of course, like, just like a whole bunch of different conflicts that we were arming both sides of wars and all types of shit like that. But anyway, so I mean, it was like the whole, you could get into the whole like Carter Doctrine, and because that was all about the Soviet Union too, and that's really what got us like more embroiled down in involvement in the Middle East and all of this stuff. There has been on the topic, we'll come back to some of the Epstein stuff more, but there's this video that's been going viral that I thought was just too fascinating to not talk about on the show a little bit here. And this really speaks to how removed the establishment is from where like the pulse of the country is. It's a theme that comes up a lot on this show because I find it to be very interesting. It's part of the reason why they're unable to like adapt to this new landscape. And there's they'll say things where they don't even realize that they're giving the game away. We've all had that in our lives, where someone slips up when they're lying about something or they get caught. And all of us could probably think of several examples where, someone kind of said the quiet part out loud. I mean, that's why there's a saying for that, saying the quiet part out loud. But talk about, I've never seen an example quite like this of just giving the game away without even realizing that you're doing it. Like, and all it would take would be like for the slightest like nanosecond to just go, let me think about how this would be perceived by the people who disagree with me. It's just like, I guess in some way, maybe because me and you are in this world of like, we're stand-up comedians and we're podcasters. And me personally, I do a lot of debates also. And so you live in this world where there's like constant feedback. Like if I say something that our audience doesn't like, they are very quick to tell me that they don't like that. If I have a joke that the audience doesn't like, they're very quick to let you know that they don't like that. So you always kind of have to be thinking about like, how do I persuade this person? How do I keep them here? You don't have the same feeling as like, where you're like, I'm Obama's speechwriter, so I could do whatever I want. So anyway, here is Obama's speechwriter talking about what we might describe as a free market in media. This is her big problem. But here she is. Her name, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name here, but it's Sarah Hurwitz. She's one of ours, Rob. And she's talking about the new media landscape. Let's play this clip.
Since October 7th, but really before then, there have been huge shifts in America on how people think about Jews and Israel. And I think that is especially true of young people. So we are now wrestling with a new, I think, generational divide here. And I think that's particularly true in that social media is now our source of media. And this, it used to be that the media you got in America was American media, and it was pretty mainstream. It generally didn't express extreme anti-Israel views. You had to go to a pretty weird bookstore to find global media and fringe media. But today, we have social media, which is a global medium, right? It is shaped, its algorithms are shaped by billions of people worldwide who don't really love Jews. And so while in the 1990s, a young person probably wasn't going to find Al Jazeera or someone like Nick Fuentes, today, those media outlets find them. They find them on their phones. It's also this increasingly post-literate media, less and less text, more and more videos. So you have TikTok just smashing our young people's brains all day long with video of carnage in Gaza. And this is why so many of us can't have a sane conversation with younger Jews, because anything that we try to say to them, they are hearing it through this wall of carnage. So I want to give data and information and facts and arguments, and they are just seeing in their minds carnage, and I sound obscene. And, you know, I think, unfortunately, the very smart, I think, bet that we made on Holocaust education to serve as anti-Semitism education, in this new media environment, I think that is beginning to break down a little bit, because, you know, Holocaust education is absolutely essential. But I think it may be confusing some of our young people about anti-Semitism because they learn about big, strong Nazis hurting weak, emaciated Jews. And they think, oh, anti-Semitism is like anti-Black racism, right? Powerful white people against powerless Black people. So when on TikTok all day long they see powerful Israelis hurting weak, skinny Palestinians, it's not surprising that they think, oh, I know, the lesson of the Holocaust is you fight Israel. You fight the big, powerful people hurting the weak people.
Rob, I mean, I literally, I saw a bunch of people were sharing this video, and I saw them saying the quiet part out loud, blah, 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 really steps in it. Just let them talk. They destroy themselves, all that. And I clicked on it and I go, how bad can this actually be? And it's like, the lack of self-awareness that you, Rob, I mean, look, everything in there is bullshit. But the fact that she actually ends it with going, hey, you know, the real problem is that, like, we taught everybody about the Holocaust and how bad it was, but like now they're mad at us when we do it. like these people got the idea that the lesson of the Holocaust was that a big, powerful government shouldn't be able to systematically destroy a captive people. But now they're applying that to the fucking Palestinians. Well, how does that make any sense, Rob? Why should they get treated like that? Oh, is it like the fact, even as she goes, like they're, you know, like all the other parts are bullshit too. Like they're looking at these horrible images, whereas I'm trying to argue with facts and data and statistics. It's like, yeah, that's actually not really what's happening. They're looking at these horrible images, then you're shrieking, you're a bigot, and they're going, I don't know, the person defending this horrible image doesn't have any moral high ground to call me names. That's what's going on here. But the idea that, like, you would go, hey, yeah, you know, everybody has this idea in their mind that the really evil thing is the person with all the power destroying the person with no power at all. Man, that really came back to bite us in the ass when we had all the power and wanted to destroy the people with no power at all. Like, you actually, like, if you, I guess the point is that if you just for a second thought about the other perspective, if you had ever grappled with it, then you wouldn't say this out loud because you'd realize how terrible this sounds. And so it's just funny because it's like, as they're having, like, the topic of conversation is, how do we deal with this thing? And then you go, well, look, isn't it obvious? You're never going to deal with it until you at least try to understand it, which, but is very self-evident that you have not even made that attempt. Any thoughts, Rob?
Oh, I got so many thoughts, but we'll start with what you were saying there, which is I didn't realize that Holocaust education wasn't actually anti-genocide, and what she's saying is Holocaust education was about empowering the Jews that now they're justified in no matter what, and I don't think that's actually what she's saying. Her problem is she's lacking an actual argument here. So when she says people are seeing these horrible images on TikTok and so therefore they're too emotional about this for an argument, I would love to know, well, what is your argument? Because I've confronted that before. During COVID, when people early on were hearing kill grandma, and seeing videos of, you know, bodies in the street, supposedly in China or whatever, and people
someone
were
on a respirator. Yeah,
and
sure.
people were terrified. You had to step in and go, I understand that you're seeing these horrible images, but firstly, there's a cost to this, which is every person's business being closed. And let's actually look at the data and see if these images justify this response. Oh, it's just old people whose deaths are being dragged forward. So when you're seeing an image of an old person dying, it's tragic. But when you're also seeing a single incident or some freak incident of a healthy individual, here's the cost of locking up healthy individuals, and you're actually going to have more of the thing you don't want. That's called an argument. So she says here, hey, you're looking at these horrible images and so you won't hear my argument. Well, now you have to actually put forward what your argument is. If you have a justification for why this activity is not genocide and it doesn't fall into what we were trying to teach with Holocaust education, you have to actually explain that. But to just say, or at least the way she's saying it here, of Holocaust education was not actually about teaching people that we're not supposed to engage in genocides, and we were wrong in the way we educated people because it was really just supposed to be about special treatment for Jewish people because they had to go through this one thing. You're lacking an argument that could persuade anybody, and you're just kind of, this is exactly why people are anti-Semitic. I mean, this is it right here. Jews have a special right to engage in activities that nobody else can engage in. And why? Because this one thing happened 87 or whatever it is, 90 years ago, 80 years ago, 70 years ago. I'm bad at history.
Yes, 80, I guess, right? 45, and we're in 25, right? Yeah, 80 years ago. In fact, it ended 80 years ago, exactly. Yeah, and I would also just add to your point, which I couldn't agree with more, but I would also add just like the level of hypocrisy and the contradictions here, because, and of course, it's not that shocking because essentially what they're doing is denying a genocide, and so they come out sounding just like the Holocaust deniers. And like down to the, like, first of all, right, so she goes, well, you're looking at all this, imagery, but imagery can be misleading. It's like, who do you sound like? Who do you sound like right now? By the way, did they not bring to the Nuremberg trials videos and photographs of the corpses? Do you not, every Holocaust museum, do they not have photographs and videos, right? Like everybody does this. Did they not? How many times have they played the images of October 7th? Everybody does this. You do it too. It's just only right now you're deciding, oh, no, that one didn't count because it was a Palestinian baby crying out for their mom who's laying dead next to them with their arm blown off or whatever. Like, it's like, oh, okay, so now all of a sudden you're not allowed. Like, that was one of the other things that was really, something over the last 2 years, is that if you, you, from my perspective, like, I remember this very clearly, but I'm sure everyone paying attention does. But it's like, so whatever we're in now, it's November of 2025, right? So it's 2 years and a month after October 7th. And so for the debates have been going on this whole time. I mean, I think I debated Laura Loomer like a few weeks after October 7th, and then I've been doing debates about this the whole time. And so the debate went the whole time. The pro-Israel side was like, October 7th, how horrible, how awful a tragedy it is. This is so horrible. Do you know what happened? Do you condemn Hamas? Like, well, and then somewhere like a year in, they started going, oh, all you guys can say is how horrible, do you condemn this? And you're like, that's how it started. It started with you saying that. And then you did something 1,000 times more horrible. And now we're all talking about that. Like, what do you, so the hypocrisy is just outrageous. And then I do think there's something else here where, it's funny because, again, on the theme of hypocrisy, Benjamin Netanyahu is openly talking about his campaign to influence American discourse. And they're they have to get to Elon. Elon's a friend. We have to use him to shut these people down. We've got to pay influencers. There was the reporting on the $7,000 they get per post or whatever. At least some of them do. They're having retreats and meetups. They're buying TikTok. They're doing everything they can to influence the conversation here, and very openly. They don't pretend like they're not. But then anytime there's opposition, it's always like, oh, that's got to come from foreign influence. Like, do we need to present any evidence to that? No. There's like I remember Laura Loomer presented one document that basically showed that like a Qatari firm, like I think it was like a PR firm, was setting up an interview between Tucker Carlson and like a Qatari official. That's the extent of the evidence they have that Qatar is behind. Like, what is that? It's nothing. It's nothing at all. But that's enough for Mark Levin to call him Tucker Carlson, every day on Twitter. But like, so you sit there, like the whole thing, like she starts with, it used to be American media, meaning it used to be controlled media, and people wouldn't find people like this. But now it's social media, which is international, and all of them hate Jews. So you're all being fooled by a bunch of foreigners. Except wait, Nick Fuentes is American. Candace Owens is American. Tucker Carlson is American. I'm American. Theo Vaughn's American. Joe Rogan's American. Like, so many of the people who they've been getting their information from, or you know, on their shows, these are all like, it's like they have to consider everything other than we just witnessed a genocide in 4K and we're forced to pay for it, and we're against that. It's like they come up with this alternative explanation when there's just a much easier explanation, which is that, oh yeah, no one else.
No, that's Dave, you're missing the point. That was bad Holocaust education.
Right.
We were educated to the fact that you shouldn't decimate civilian populations. And
Yes.
that was because we had bad teachers when they taught us about the Holocaust. And really the lesson was you're just not allowed to do it to Jews. That was what the lesson was supposed to be.
That sure does sound like it. And, you know, in a way, like, look, she's not really saying anything different than I'm saying, just saying it in different words. But she said point blank, she was like, look, like, you know, 30 years ago, or however she said it, you would have had to walk into some obscure bookstore to hear a view like Candace Owens's, right? You wouldn't have heard that on TV or read that in a respectable newspaper, but now you can hear that. Okay, but like, what is that? Stated differently, the same thing is like, oh yeah, now they get to hear from the other side, and you can't win the argument once they do. Like, you're saying the same thing, just in different words, and then adding in this like ominous, like, oh, but it's foreigners. Like, I mean, look, obviously, like, there's not zero foreign influence on anything anymore. Like, we live in the technological age, and you know, yeah, like, I don't know, Piers Morgan's show is one of the biggest shows in America, but it's broadcast from London or wherever they do it. I think London. Okay, but like, so what? What does that mean? And of course, then again, Trigonometry is a big show that's also out of the UK, totally on the other side. That's never an issue. But the point is just that, like, the idea that young people have been like fooled into opposing this by seeing it with their own eyes is just what an angle to go with, Rob.
Hey, we got to re-educate on the Holocaust, about the specialness of God's chosen people and why everyone else is actually expendable.
Yeah, you know, there is also, the other thing is just that, like, this is an Obama speechwriter, and it just does show you how much of this is in that world, like thinking like this. Again, it's just it's, you know, it reminds me of when the UFC first started. So when the UFC first started in 1993, the idea of it, which was very exciting, this is what I got super into because I just find this fascinating. But the idea was like, hey, there's all these different styles of fighting. Let's see which one actually works. Like, let's see what actually works. You know, like when I was a kid, there were like karate dojos and taekwondo dojos in every neighborhood. Everyone had like this, you know, there was all these debates about like Wing Chun versus Kung Fu, like what would actually work in a fight. And then there were the traditional sports like boxing and wrestling. And then there was like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And what ended up happening at the beginning was like all the sports where they spar just dominated. Like it was like, it turns out what works in a fight, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu works, boxing works, kickboxing works, wrestling works, Muay Thai works. And part of the reason was because those guys fought regularly. Like the Taekwondo guys, at least back then, and a lot of those like little specialists, like I do Wing Chun and I have a crane kick that will explode your heart. They never actually fought each other because they'd say, I'll kill you with my bare hands if I ever fought you. So they were completely unprepared. They'd get in there, get punched in the face. They'd never been punched in the face before. They didn't know what to do. And so I don't know. I feel like there's a similar dynamic where like in our world, we just fight all the time. We get the pushback. We have to incorporate that into our worldview. We have to make our arguments stronger. They are coming with this. The problem is that they can see it. And so these young people are against it. I mean, like, let me tell you something. For all you people out there who are essentially saying like the young generation has been swept up in anti-Semitism or something like that, the idea, they invoke like the Nazis and this idea that like the young generation are like these cold-blooded like Jew haters or something like that. When in reality, it's just that they're fucking young and idealistic and bleeding heart, which is what you're supposed to be when you're young. Like, I guess my point is that if you think this is bad, you don't want to see a society where your young people see this genocide committed in 4K and don't care about it. That would be actually a much more like dangerous sign for your civilization. And whatever. It's just it's crazy how much like we live in the upside down world where the fucking the people who are against a genocide get accused of being Holocaust deniers, and the people denying a genocide are talking about Holocaust remembrance. What a weird goddamn time to be alive. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Marsmen. Marsmen is designed to help free locked testosterone so your body can actually use it. No synthetics, no needles, just real ingredients that help optimize energy, focus, and strength. I could tell you as a 42-year-old, you definitely feel that you don't recover quite as quickly or have as much energy as you used to when you were younger. And nationwide, testosterone levels have been plummeting. So this is a great product that supports healthy T levels, energy, and stamina. It's made in the USA and it's third-party tested. Plus, there's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk to you. Worst case, you don't absolutely love it, you get your money back, but over 91% of users reported higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website to see for yourself. And for a limited time, our listeners get 60% off for life and 3 free gifts when you use the promo code PROBLEM at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com, promo code PROBLEM at checkout for 60% off and the 3 free gifts. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about it. So please help us out and mention that you heard about them right here on the Part of the Problem podcast. All right, let's get back into it. Anyway, if you have anything else on this, go for it. Or we
got hella clips. Let's cook.
All right. What do you think we should go into next, Rob? Because we got a few good ones here. I mean, I guess we could go. The Jasmine Crockett one is pretty goddamn fun, and this is back to the Epstein story. Let's play. So Jasmine Crockett, who is the dumbest member of Congress, the dumbest person to ever be in Congress. She put her foot in her mouth the other day, but this was really, this is, I don't know if you've ever argued with a drunk woman before, you've come across things like this, but it really was just remarkable. So let's play this clip.
Who's been on defense over Jeffrey Epstein is Stacey Plaskett. She represents the Virgin Islands. She was texting with Jeffrey Epstein the day of Michael Cohen's hearing. Her questions pretty closely followed the text messages between the two of them to ask about Rona Graff, Trump's longtime assistant. You were defending her today in recent days, yesterday, and you talked about Republicans taking money from a Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what you said.
Who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that?
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein. Just so that people understand, when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had.
I mean, you almost got to respect the balls on her. Like, that is there is a lie that because like such a bold-faced lie where you go, all right, I'll give you credit for that one. Like that takes cojones to just say that one out loud. Like to not even have, there is a thing. I will say this, it's very Trumpian of her. This is the type of thing Donald Trump would do, like where they just be like, he'd be like, after 9/11, there were thousands of Muslims celebrating in the streets. They were so happy about 9/11. And then someone asked him in an interview, be like, you claim there were thousands of Muslims celebrating in the streets. Like, there is just absolutely no evidence that ever happened at all. And he'd go, well, a lot of people say it happened. And you're like, wait, what? What was it? But this is just, I mean, it's even bolder than that. To just go, she stood up there, and like, yes, she did say, well, you got a donation from a Jeffrey Epstein. But like, are we actually like have you ever been in an argument with a woman like this in your life, Rob? Because I have a few times where you're just like, you almost say a thing and then you're just like, all right, are we really doing this now? Like, you're obviously, the whole point here was that you were saying they took money from Jeffrey Epstein too. And she could just say, she goes, yeah, that was a mistake by my staff. We were looking into that. We got that one wrong. But she kind of, I guess, just knows in politics, like, no, you never act like that. You always act like you're right no matter. I don't lie. That's what Republicans do. You just got caught. What are you talking about?
And now I don't even really understand the new lie, because now she's trying to argue that she was up there saying we can't just hastily dig into the Epstein stuff, because if we do, you can Google search it and get the wrong donors, and then therefore think that certain people received money who didn't actually receive money. So what do you say? Should we not look into the Epstein stuff because other staff members might be as dumb as yours and just do a Google search of who received money from Jeffrey Epstein and then realize it's the wrong money? And I'm not sure if campaign money from Jeffrey Epstein is the telltale sign of who we're going to be taking down. I don't know how many political donations Jeffrey Epstein made, but I don't think individuals who got donations from Jeffrey Epstein prior to 2018 are instantly going to get thrown out of American politics.
No, it's not even, it doesn't even necessarily reflect poorly on them. It might be an interesting question of like, why was Jeffrey Epstein, wanting to see this person? Yeah, like that might be a question. But no, dude, political donations have nothing to do with anything. Political, like, okay, if me or you just send a political donation to a candidate, they will take it. That's what they do. Like, you got to be like David Duke or something like that before like someone on your staff might be like, yo, this donation came in from David Duke. Do you want to, spend? In fact, I remember this was a controversy. The reason David Duke came into my mind, but this was a controversy during Ron Paul's, I believe it was his 2008 presidential campaign, where supposedly David Duke sent them money and they didn't realize and they took it. And then they tried to like get Ron Paul with it. And they were like, are you going to return the money? And he was like, and I just always thought it was so funny. He was like, well, wait a minute. Now you want me to give David Duke money? Like, what a weird request, right? Like, if David Duke gave money to my campaign where I'm promoting like liberty, you'd rather the money went from promoting liberty to back to David Duke. It's just so no, it doesn't reflect at all like necessarily on the candidate who took the money. That's a very different thing from the fact that this other lady was texting with Jeffrey Epstein about the Michael Cohen hearing in 2018, years after he had been convicted. That is a whole different thing than just he sent a check. And also, like, if you look at some of those, like when you go, say the ones that, to me, like she named George W. Bush and Mitt Romney. Now, if you guys know anything about this here program, I'm not known for defending George W. Bush or Mitt Romney, okay? And maybe those guys are guilty of a 1,000,001 different crimes and, so whatever. But donating to one of the major party presidential campaigns just really doesn't give you any information. It just really doesn't give you any information at all. The truth is that almost everybody, I'd imagine, almost everybody who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars cuts a check to one of the presidential candidates. Like it just really doesn't give you much information. Like the overwhelming majority of people either support the Democrat or the Republican in a presidential election. And if you got a whole lot of money, you might send one of them a check. So there, again, this is just, that part is actually, or at least on its own, is a nothing burger. Like, if you have some other connection, then fine. But it's a very different thing from sending a text message to somebody to get information out of them. It's just different. I'm not saying either is a conviction of a crime or anything like that. But yes, this lady's stupid. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But
even if she said that with total clarity, it's just hilarious. So you all accusing my friend texting, getting information from Jeffrey Epstein, being friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, let me tell you, Republicans took money from a different Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
It's just and even, by the way, even if it was the same Jeffrey Epstein, to the average American viewing that, they go, no, don't try to play it like that. This pedophile ring condemns both major parties. Like, okay, all right. So let's still get to the bottom of that then. It's like, but was anyone, because here's the other thing, is that she even says this in her own words. She's talking to Republicans. This is what's so fascinating here, right? She's too stupid to even like think about all these factors. But she's talking to Republicans and going, hey, you want to expose our people for working with Jeffrey Epstein? We're going to turn around and expose some of your people for working for Jeffrey Epstein. Now, that might be a reasonable thing to say behind closed doors to other Republicans, but you're saying this on the floor of the House of Representatives. Now, she may not know this, but there are video cameras and microphones there, and we can all see it. And this TV studio that she's in, this is being broadcasted. So to anybody else listening, you go, wait a minute. So you're telling the Republicans to stop digging up dirt on Jeffrey Epstein because Republicans might also get hurt by that? All right.
So you're trying to protect Jeffrey Epstein. Is that what you're saying? You're trying to protect Democrats? Because to the general public, we're all like, great. Go ahead, take down Lindsey Graham or Mitt Romney because they also got donations from Jeffrey Epstein. We're for getting rid of all the criminals. It's not much of a threat to us to let us know, hey, don't delve into this story because some Republicans are going to be in trouble too. That's exactly what we're getting at, you dummy.
No, that's right. And look, I think once you get to a certain point, particularly with the Jeffrey Epstein thing, but there's other examples of this too. But like when Mike Johnson says that if we release all of the files, that it would be a threat to our political order. Or when Jasmine Crockets says that a bunch of Republicans will go down with the Democrats, or that, that when they redact information saying essentially that it's a risk to national security for this information to be out. It's like, there are some things that are so evil and so beyond the pale that it's like, hey, if the whole political system falls as a result of this, then so be it. Then it deserves to fall. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. You're talking about a ring of abusing girls in connection with a foreign government. Like, sorry, I don't care who goes down. And I think more and more Americans feel that way. Like, oh, this might implicate Donald Trump, or this might implicate Bill Clinton. Okay, cool. Let's see. Let's see who's implicated here. I don't care. I don't like, and the crime that's being alleged here is so serious that it's crazy that anyone could even, like, it is on the level of like your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend saying like, I can't let you look through my phone because it would destroy the foundations of our entire relationship. It's like, okay, then we need to look through it that much more, don't we? Because that's the whole point. And that's not a defense. Oh, shoot. Well, I mean, I don't want to mess up the whole thing we have here. It's like, no, the whole thing is a lie if this would destroy it. So let's look at that. All right, here.
This is almost like It's Always Sunny or Dumb and Dumber stupid, where she might as well have just been on the news and gone, well, then we should be looking into that doctor too. I don't know. You know some other Dr. Jeffrey Epstein? Maybe he bad too.
Yeah, really. Oh man. Okay, let's play the rest of this.
To say it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. he admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein. So at least I wasn't trying to mislead people. Now, have I dug in to find out who this doctor is? I have not. So I will trust and take what he says is that it wasn't that Jeffrey Epstein, but I was not attempting to mislead anybody. I literally had maybe 20 minutes before I had to do that debate.
Yeah, but people might see that and say, well, you're trying to.
People might see that and say, it's amazing the kid gloves that they treat Democrats with. Because, yes, you only had 20 minutes. You did a sloppy job. And then you went out there that made an accusation that turned out not to be correct. But what do you mean you weren't trying to mislead anybody? No, that is true. I do think she wasn't trying to mislead anybody. You know, it's like you were misled yourself. You got it wrong and then thought you had it. You didn't do any double checking. I mean, she says there's no photograph next to on the list of campaign donations. Like, but is there anything? Is there a phone number, a date of birth? Is there an address? Is there any information that you could cross-reference? Like, probably. And also, Epstein is a fairly common Jewish last name. I know several Epsteins who have no connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey is a fairly common first name. So, like, I'm sorry, it's not like rocket science to be like, hey, if we were going on to a podcast in 20 minutes and you were like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm searching this database for who's connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And then we're going to go talk about it on the show. I would certainly go like, well, I got to have something more than just the name Jeffrey Epstein before I take this to air. You know what I mean? But she doesn't have that standard for speaking on the the floor of Congress. Like, it's just crazy. And then to go, oh, I wasn't trying to mislead anybody. Well, yeah, but you did. Like, you did mislead people because you did such sloppy research and then ran with it.
I wasn't intending to mislead people. Firstly, it's nice to know that these people also have dumb staff. They're not just dumb people, but they have dumb staff.
Yep.
Now, not intending to mislead people, then you would go, oh, I only had 20 minutes and I had bad information. It wasn't my intention to mislead, and those actually weren't donors. But so you knew that wasn't the actual Jeffrey Epstein, and you presented it in a misleading way. You can't have this both ways. You are either specifically trying to mislead people, or you could go, sorry, I'm actually really stupid and my staff is really stupid, and we're going to have to actually find us one of these Epstein people with that last name who isn't as dumb as the rest of us.
Well, it's literally, I mean, it's on the level, literally. It is going, if you said, like, we were talking and you were like, oh, I wasn't in Connecticut last night. I was out of the state. And I was like, really? Because I was at the comedy club in Connecticut, and guess who walked into my green room? One Rob Bernstein. And then you went, wait, I didn't walk into your green room last night. And then I go, oh, I never said that. I said one Rob Bernstein. Well, I said it directly in response to you saying you weren't in Connecticut last night. And I sure did say it with a tone like I was proving you wrong here. But no, technically I said a Rob Bernstein. And so it was a different Rob. But what do you think? You're the only Rob Bernstein in the, it's like, what are we, like, literally, I feel like I have a daughter who's in the first grade. And I mean this, I think at least my assessment of her and her friends is that if someone tried to, like, play that, they'd go, come on, we all know what you're doing here. Like, obviously, you know, like, maybe not. But I'm pretty sure even amongst my first graders friend group, I don't think they could pull off that level of bullshit. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Cowboy Colostrum. It is 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. And unlike other colostrum brands, Cowboy Colostrum is sourced from the first milking of U.S. grass-fed cows. Don't worry, Cowboy Colostrum only collects the surplus colostrum after the baby calves have had their fill. And they don't overprocess or strip their colostrum like other brands do, leaving it whole flavorful, full fat, and high protein for ultimate nutrient density, making it the highest quality bovine colostrum you can buy. Cowboy is easy to drink and is made with delicious natural ingredients and no artificial flavors. You simply add a 3-gram scoop of either the chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, or strawberry into your coffee or smoothie. And as an added bonus, the natural growth factors and peptides in Cowboy colostrum will make your hair and skin look great. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/Dave and use the promo code Dave at checkout. That's 25% off when you use promo code Dave at cowboycolostrum.com/Dave. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. Please make sure to mention that you heard about them right here at Part of the Problem. That'd help us out. All right, let's get back into the show. It really is something. You know what? Let's just because we're coming up to the end of the show here, let's move on to the Van Jones clip. I saw you sent that one, Rob. This was fairly interesting too, because I just think again it's almost full circle to the thing at the beginning with that Obama speechwriter lady saying like, oh, we showed people about the Holocaust, but now they object to every single Holocaust. I mean, what's wrong? I mean, this thing really backfired. But anyway, here is Van Jones.
He could just call the Justice Department right now.
He could do it right now. He could just do it right now. Look, I mean, it turns out that there is a limit to how far this kind of Trump cult is willing to go. And once you are talking about a massive conspiracy to protect pedophiles, even the Trump coalition cannot hold together. And I think he's actually probably shocked. He did all his usual tricks. He threw out the word hoax. He attacked this person, he attacked that person. He gave a nickname to Margaret Taylor Greene. None of his tricks worked. And I think he's probably sitting there shocked that yes, there is gravity. Yes, there is a sun in the sky. And no, Republicans are not going to support you protecting a pedophile ring.
He could just call the Justice Department right now.
All right. What do you think, Rob?
I think it's the only time I've ever seen that guy get something right. And
yeah,
it's amazing how much the Republicans fumble that they even allowed this guy to finally say something coherent.
Well, I guess the thing that I would I guess kind of disagree with here is that, and look, it's not he is broadly right in his comments here, and Van Jones gets a thing or two right every now and then, but there is he gets a lot more wrong, but there is something, particularly for a Democrat Kamala Harris supporter, there is something like going like, well, the Trump cult couldn't even go far, and you're like, okay, but actually what you're seeing is evidence that it's not a cult. Like it's a little bit of I've always kind of, it's like it's like the defense where they go like, see, even you had to admit that was right. It's like, no, in other words, he admitted it was right. Like, you're such a cult, but actually, I gotta say, there's always been this accusation that Trump supporters are a cult, and look, it is true to some degree. And me and you have talked about this quite a bit. I mean, there are Trump supporters who, like, no matter how much you have them on the argument, no matter how much they agree with your argument, they'll still defend, Donald Trump for whatever. Just because that's their guy and they're going to ride with him. But like, Van Jones is so much more in a cult than any Trump supporter has ever been for Donald Trump. All those guys would literally sit there and tell you, and obviously we've discussed this before on the show, but I always find it interesting to see a Democrat on CNN talking about a cult. And you're like, guys, you literally said the sitting senile president was sharp as a tack. And everyone on your side repeated after you, sharp as a tack, sharp as a tack. And then you went, he's so senile, he needs to drop out of the race. And they went, drop out of the race. He's got to drop out of the race. And then you went, Kamala Harris is joy and inspiration. And they went, yes, joy and inspiration. She's like, who are you to call anyone else a cult? Say what you will about Donald Trump's side. We've at least seen, like, there are things he could say that they'll be like, no, we don't agree with that. And this does seem to be one of them. Now, what Van Jones does have right there, and this is why I compared it to the thing at the beginning. Although, to be fair, Van Jones is admitting it. He's not denying it. But it's like what Van Jones gets right here is what the Obama speechwriter lady and Mark Levin and all of them get completely wrong. You know, I had a moment on the Trigonometry podcast where they were asking me why the young leftists are so against what Israel did to Gaza, and they start theorizing, and they're like, you know, I forget exactly what they said. It's, you know, it was a long conversation, but there's something like they start theorizing about like Qatari money, or kind of like the leftist worldview of oppressor versus oppressed, and they see the Israelis as the whites, and they see the Palestinians as the dispossessed brown people, or something like that. And then at a certain point, I just went, yeah, and they've probably seen a lot of videos of Palestinian babies being tortured to death. And it's just like this weird pause, like, yeah, that might have had something to do with it too. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's it. It's like people going like, why are people so up in arms? Well, there's the obvious. There's the obvious. I mean, it's like I don't know. It's like you come home and you find your wife in bed with another man and you're furious. And then people are going, you think he's furious because like you had a bad day at work? Maybe you didn't get good sleep the morning before. You go, I'm pretty sure it's the thing he just walked in on. That seems much more reasonable. And so like, why is it that supporting Israel has cost Donald Trump so much, and cost Joe Biden so much, and cost Kamala Harris so much? Why is it that Donald Trump covering up the Epstein files has cost him so much politically? Well, like, what do you need? What do we need to lay down on the couch and bring in a psychoanalyst to go over our childhood memories or something like that? It's because, look, it's too indefensible on the face of it. Yes, as Van Jones said, a gigantic conspiracy to cover up pedophilia. Do you need more than that? By the way, there is more than that if you need it. But like, do you need more than that? I think that's more than enough. And that is not going away. And then I guess the other thing is that, you know, which, like, as we've mentioned before, is that it almost at this point, I don't see any way that this story goes away. I don't see, like, the best case scenario for the regime is that they deliver now some documents and there's nothing in there that gives us any more information or connects the dots. That's the best case scenario for the regime and for the people who are trying to suppress this story. If that happens, I mean, I think precisely 0%. And I don't even mean like there's a rounding error there and statistically it's 0%. I mean zero. I do not think there is one person in the world who is suspicious about this Jeffrey Epstein story, who, if the government were to now release information that said there's nothing there, would go, well, I guess there was a nothing burger. It looked pretty good, but it was, you know, like, there's just no way. And look, I mean, this White House has already, not just this White House, but very specifically, Rob, this Justice Department has already completely discredited themselves on this issue by having a big event where they said we were releasing the Epstein file, calling in like right-wing influencers, giving them a bunch of binders, claiming they were the Epstein files. Like, they claimed that we were about to get basically, like, they were doing almost, it seemed like they were trying to like imitate what Elon Musk did with the Twitter files, where he gave it to Barry Weiss and what's his name? I'm sorry, blanking on his Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi. I apologize to Matt Taibbi. And said, okay, now you guys can like report on this as you dig through the documents. They did that, except it turned out none of them were new files. They had just given him stuff that was already a part of the public record. So now, and then they turned around and pretended none of it happened and the story's dead. So now if they put it, like, it's just not going to satisfy anyone. No one trusts them at all anymore. And so the only way, like the only conceivable way that I could see them putting this story to bed would be like if Kash Patel himself or like Donald Trump himself, like got out a blackboard and went through the entire history of Jeffrey Epstein and went, here's actually the answer for every one of these things. Like, how did he get into this elite school, Dalton, without any background or degree and become a teacher there? Okay, well, here's actually the answer for that. Like, why was it Bill Barr's father who hired him at Dalton? That's pretty weird. Okay, well, here's actually the answer for that. How did he rise up the ranks at Bear Stearns so quickly? Okay, here's actually the answer for that. How did he become friends with Ehud Barak? Like, how did he, you know what I'm saying? Like, how, like, you'd have to go through this entire thing and have a really compelling answer for all of these crazy, which there's no way they're going to do. None of them are capable of doing that. And so I don't know. You just go, essentially the way you look at it, either we're going to get some information out of this that's more damning, or we're all going to stay exactly where we are right now. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to be reasonable here. And I don't think it's unreasonable with this administration's track record and just the government's track record in general to go, whatever you put out now, if there's nothing there, we're just going to think you're full of shit because you've lied to us about the last 30 crises or so. Final word to you, Rob, and then we'll wrap up.
I think you're mostly right about it. The only thing that kind of comes to mind is the P. Diddy story, which when that finally went to trial, it seemed like it was more women in bad relationships with him complaining about the bad relationships they were in with him. And I guess there's still some questions about ages of victims, how many victims. Yeah. And, like, I think it's pretty clear. Best bet is that this guy was American intelligence and he did things that would be beyond the moral compass of most Americans. And for some reason, he was valuable enough or enough people are wrapped into this that our government has been trying to push it away. And in pushing it away, the story's only grown bigger and become louder. And I think at this point, you're probably right that there's too many variables on the factor that they can't just explain away, that this will lurk forever. So I think you're mostly right.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, look, you are right about the example of P. Diddy. It just seems like with P. Diddy, there was so much more wild speculation and there was way less like actual known details that all point in this one direction. Whereas like, with this one, it's just like, it just seems at this point pretty goddamn clear that the guy was very tied to Israeli intelligence, probably tied to U.S. intelligence, and that alone makes this like a, just like a much more scandalous story. All right. I will see you in Poughkeepsie tomorrow night, Rob, and hopefully I will see some of you fine people who are listening out there as well. Catch you next time. Peace.